Today we're going to be doing a new series based on opinions that go a bit against the grain, or hot takes as it were, ideas what we're passionate about, or that just really grinds our gears. This is Hills to Die On.
Yeah, so controversial opinions. You, Dark Frost, are on the precipice of the Viper Pit. What do you scream at the sky in defiance?
If I were to say From Software or Souls-like, what springs to mind? Extreme difficulty? Steep learning curve? Endless arguments online of get good or it's too hard? From's hardly the first nor the only developer to implement difficulty in video games. Capcom with Devil May Cry, for one example. Difficulty comes in many flavors, however most of them offer some sort of respite. And so for the hill I'm prepared to stand upon and dig my heels in and say, games with difficulty options or sliders is the gold standard. And I believe all games should offer something along those lines, i.e. an easy mode.
Wow, you're coming out of the gate strong. You just went straight for specifically From Soft games.
I figured they're the biggest target in terms of difficulty in video games, and the one most people are familiar with. I mean, roguelikes are popular as well, and then, you know, like I mentioned before, Devil May Cry. Those games exist, but they're not as widespread or in the zeitgeist for hard games.
Doesn't Devil May Cry have difficulty settings? Or at least, I remember Devil May Cry 3, if you had difficulty, or if you died so many times within a level, it unlocked an easy mode?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the first ones that does spring to mind. It offered up easy mode if you died. I believe it was like 5 times in a row in the earlier stages. I don't know if it happened later on, but I know it happened in the beginning. And it's one of the best examples I can think of off the top of a game that's I can't say the word.
Are you trying to say intrinsically?
There we go, yeah, intrinsically. Thank you. Intrinsically difficult and tied to that, but at the same time, they're not, you know, they're not afraid to throw you a bone kind of thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Speaking of intrinsically difficult, or difficulty being intrinsic to the game, to play devil's advocate, so I agree with you on that statement as a whole. But the Dark Souls game, and this is coming from someone who has never beat a Dark Souls game, I got about halfway through Bloodborne, and I did beat Elden Ring, but Elden Ring's a little bit of a different beast. I feel as though the difficulty in those games is intrinsic to the game, because you're not playing it's not a power fantasy. You are literally fighting for every inch of ground. You are a worm, something that's less than human in every game, fighting against things that are literal gods in some cases. And the difficulty, I think, is part of that storytelling.
I can see that argument, but I disagree. For me, it's more of difficulty is tied to the game for sure. But difficulty in the combat mode, not necessarily all the little cheap ways that they kind of screw you over too, with like hidden bad guys, and then also just wanting you to explore, but at the same time we're going to put, 15 trolls in between you and that door that you want to go to, even though there's nothing really but like a small item in that door. But before I get way off, let me bring up my main points. My main points: 1, it's a single player game, making it easier for the individual, whoever wishes to do so, doesn't break said game for you. I mean, if we want to go back, GTA, they always had the cheats inside. If you want to, you don't have to play the game, the way you want to. You could just cause havoc, summon a tank or a helicopter or whatever by putting in the right code. Another one is, like we already mentioned, Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is like, we want you to get a good score. You want to get that S rank score, right? But to do that, you can't play on easy. You have to play on a harder difficulty, and you have to be able to pull off the combos and everything. Because it's a more of a rhythm game, I guess, in terms of Devil May Cry, and I'd argue to a degree even in Souls-like, because really what it boils down to is learning the enemy's moves and then reacting or preempting going in with a plan kind of thing. Two, another point, mods. Mods exist. An example of a mod that would intrinsically break a game to most people who feel strongly one way or another that this is the way you have to play the game, come hell or high water. There's a mod called Combat Made Easy for Stardew Valley. I just discovered that today by Nicole Plays on YouTube. She was showing it off, and it straight up lets you do the classic slider of I take less damage, enemies take more damage per hit kind of thing. You could even adjust the drop rate and everything on that. Does that break the game? Does it make their enjoyment of said game less? I don't think so. I mean, would I play it that way? No, I like the combat in Stardew, so I would keep it as is. It's not that challenging. However, in the same vein, I don't like the farming side of it. If I could set up a mod to automatically farm for me, or where I didn't even have to worry about farming, I would enjoy that game a lot better. Another great example, Fallout. Fallout has so many different mechanics to it. It also has huge mod support. It's one of the most modded games out there next to Skyrim. I still feel like it being a single player game and mods are the two biggest arguments of why we shouldn't care as players or as a community how someone plays their game, how someone enjoys the game.
So you're talking about this from a company, like a developer perspective, correct? They shouldn't care that they don't, or they should include a difficulty slider because it's not affecting anyone other than the individual playing the game, and people are going to mod the game anyways.
Yeah, something along those lines. Not necessarily just the developers. I mean, I'm saying gaming as a whole, so the whole industry, fans and developers, because I feel like it's a level of elitism I can't get behind in video gaming, of the whole, like, oh, Xbox is better than PlayStation, or PlayStation is better than Xbox for whatever reason. But more specifically for this topic, it's that level of elitism of you have to play the game the way they said you play it, otherwise you don't play it. Like, go sit in a corner or go throw the game in the trash if you're not going to play it the way we want you to play it, kind of thing. Because takes away...
You're specifically talking about the Get Good people.
Yeah, I'm specifically talking about the Get Good people, or the ones that argue saying that if you change anything about the game, it fundamentally changes the game, and it ruins whatever vision that the developers had. And I say to that, art is subjective. You can't control how people are going to consume your art. You can put it out there and have an intention for it, but you can't force someone to look at it and perceive it the same way you intended.
Wow, we're gonna bottle up that statement and use it for another episode, because that's like a whole hour long Neon City Gaming Radio in itself right there. But going back to difficulty and the fight against the Get Good crowd and all the games, so you think all games should have difficulty sliders, correct?
Yes, I think every game should have not necessarily difficulty sliders, and then when people hear easy mode, they immediately go to, like, story mode, where you just press X to win, or you just walk your way through everything.
I've played games on easy mode.
Yeah, I played games on
there are certain games that I've got 2 kids and a full-time job outside of YouTube, and sometimes I want to enjoy a game and not have to go through a fight 500 times or so. I don't play most games on easy mode. I start most games on normal, but if I start running into an area where time investment versus enjoyment isn't lining up, I think that's what those modes are for.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's also tied into what I say all the time. Respect my time as a player, kind of thing. Because sure, one person can spend an afternoon and beat the hardest boss in a couple hours after trying so hard against it, and then there's players like me who's like, I can spend a week trying to fight the same boss, but I don't want to. If I go more than a couple play sessions and I can't get past something, I'm going to stop playing. I'm going to stop playing, or thankfully I have started playing Elden Ring recently. Thankfully in that you do have other options.
Yeah, I was super surprised. I was super surprised when you started playing Elden Ring.
Thankfully with it being an open world game, you have the ability to rush past things. It has a lot more save points than any other From Software title, and It's a little bit more.
There's a lot more
forgiving.
player agency on when you save and where you can go, what fights you can successfully get away from. It still pulls those troll moves though, where you walk into a door and it slams shuts and locks behind you. Or some guy's waiting around a corner, a skeleton with a huge mallet, just like, oh, he's gonna come walking around that corner. I'm gonna bop him on the head.
No, and those things still bug me, but like, especially because it happens so frequently. If it wasn't such a common occurrence, it wouldn't bother me so much. But that said, skipping to one of my other points, that difficulty isn't bad necessarily. Like, I like a challenge. I like to feel that dopamine rush of having accomplished something that was a bit of a hill to climb up on. But that said, I don't want to, I have a life outside of video gaming. I have, a job. I have things I need to do outside of just playing this one game. To call it a specific game, Sekiro, I paid full price for Sekiro, bought it day one. I loved the first few hours of it. I was still in love with it for about 20 hours into the game, but by that point, I hit a wall, and the difficulties ramp was just too insane to where I was no longer having fun. I was having a stressful time, and then I never got to see the rest of my game I spent money for, which that ties into accessibility. Like, I think it's messed up to sell someone a product and without the option of refund and force them to play a certain way. Like, that's a good response to the question I was going to ask, because people are going to say, well, this game isn't made for you. You are not that kind of gamer. It's okay not to like that game, but don't try to change a game to make it fit what you like. But you come up with like if you buy a Dark Souls game, you know what you're getting into. Like, even if you've never played a Dark Souls game, they're ubiquitous enough online and things of that nature. They have a reputation. But Sekiro, you're saying that maybe you just really didn't have an idea of how difficult it was going to be. You're invested in it. You can't possibly know until you're multiple hours into the game. You feel like it's not fair. You're invested financially in the experience, and you're just not having fun. Yeah, I mean, more or less. Specifically with Sekiro, it unlike Elden Ring, where they moved away from some of the flubs. Like, right now, I would think my favorite game ever would probably be Elden Ring, but Sekiro. That would probably be my favorite game of all time.
Wow. Are you playing a samurai in Elden Ring?
I am playing a samurai in Elden Ring, and that just makes me want to go back. I almost bought Sekiro a second time, but knowing that I can't get past the halfway point stopped me from buying it on PC because of the hard gates in that game, where it's like, well, you have to beat the chapter bosses or whatever in order to upgrade your sword to get stronger. So the only way to get good in that game is by literally getting better, not grinding like in Elden Ring or another Souls title. To me, I think in this day and age, to go back to what you were saying a while ago about changing the game or whatever, no one's asking the game to be changed for the regular fans. No one's saying make this game easy so everyone can play it, screw the hardcore players. No one's saying that. What we're saying is give us an option to make it a little bit easier for the rest of us who don't have all day to spend grinding away, leveling up their skill to beat this game. Sekiro's not the only game that came out that year. I mean, hundreds of other games came out that year, and they all vibing for the same amount of eyeballs spit time. And then games are going up. They're $70 now. And it's just, I think it's a bit ridiculous to come out of the gate and say, well, this game's not made for you. Well, who's it made for? It's not made for anyone in particular. They want to sell their game. I mean, they didn't make it for the hell of it. They made it because they plan to sell it. It's a business. It's a product. If it was like a sports game, sure, then I could claim that it's not me. If I'm not going into a sports game being like, hey, change that football into a grenade or something like that, where it's not even the same type of game at all. Like,
you say you're not changing the fundamentals of the game.
Exactly. I'm not telling you to change the fundamentals. Leave it the same. Normal has always been an option in video games, and normal should be whatever the developers intend the game to come off as. They can add a harder mode. They can add an easier mode. Many game companies have done it. The industry hasn't fallen apart because of it. You know, studios didn't close their shop because suddenly they were too easy or whatever. And then I think it boils down to back to the elitism of From's too afraid to add one now because it's been so long and the internet discourse is so high. They are afraid that their hardcore base will revolt and not buy the game. Who cares how someone else enjoys the game? Ultimately, it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't hurt me. I paid money for this. I'm interested in 2/3 of the concept of the game. The only thing I don't like is this excruciatingly difficult boss fight halfway through or whatever, where it's just like I can't either physically do the controls, which that's not the case, but for some people that is the case, and I can't enjoy the rest of it, especially because, you know, take a Souls, continue on the Souls type train. Certain bosses might be a difficult fight for me, not so for you, and vice versa. You know, not everyone's going to have the same experience, and not everyone's going to have the same level of coordination, I guess. I'm just saying, I'm just arguing ultimately that give us options. It doesn't hurt anyone. Another good example would be like, say, Mario Kart. Mario Kart, the main point of that game is to, you know, race proficiently, right? That's the idea of the game, get the gold trophy. Well, they also have the remote track thing or whatever for kids. Like there's a kid mode where you can have it stay on the track so you never fall off the track or anything like that. And does that ruin my enjoyment of the game? No. It allowed my niece, who was 3 at the time, to get really into Mario Kart to where she's now playing it without those options. You know? Would she have ever gotten on board with the game series had they not had those options? Possibly. But at the same time, it allowed her, you know, to have fun with something that she wouldn't normally been able to join in on.
You're advocating sliders not just to have easy modes, but then sometimes, you know, if you want to have a more difficult challenge, that is also an option.
Well, yeah, just options in general. Like, have the game set as normal for whatever you intend the baseline of the game to be, and then allow people to adjust certain things. And it doesn't have to be just the easy, hard slider. It can be, you know, make it fit your world. Like, for example, with Souls, make it where I could do a toggle where I don't lose my souls for dying. Sacrilegious, I'm sure. But for me, I don't care. That's not a big part of the game for me. Big part of the game for me is the tight controls, the interesting world to explore, and, you know, the fun combat as a whole. There's ways to make things work within your own world rather than just the flat 25%, 50% more health, or, you know, damage mitigation kind of thing.
I recently started playing GoldenEye on the 64 again, and I like how they did difficulty, where it's just, it adds more responsibilities on the player. Other than that, not hardly anything else changes.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good one, because like on easy, what is it? Agent is the easiest mode on that.
Agent, get to the end of the dam.
Yeah,
Secret
like,
agent, get to the end of the dam, but disable all of the alarms. And then I think it's 00 agent. It's those two objectives, plus you have to plan a modem, I think.
Yeah. And then Devil May Cry is, you know, the enemies themselves are more difficult. Plus, you also get a better score modifier. You know.
So I have to play devil's advocate because that's just how this works. What about those people who say that the nirvana, or the highest plane of enjoyment, specifically for the Souls-like games, is finally overcoming, finally standing victorious on a mountain of your own courses?
Good. I'm glad for you. Congratulations. I'm glad that's how you get off into that game. You know, other people get off different ways. You know,
I'm glad that's how you enjoy that game. That's how you could have said that, but no, it's just like that. I'm glad that's how you proceed sexual enjoyment from this video game.
Well, no, you get. I mean, I do like. Yeah, I'm glad that's how you enjoy the game.
Yeah.
I get moments like that in those games and other games too. There is times where it's like, you know what? No, I am gonna put my nose down and grind and I'm gonna beat that thing or whatever it is. And there's games like that that are fun, that do that. So far, Elden Ring is like that for me. I've yet to hit the wall in Elden Ring to where I'm just like, fuck this game. I'm never going to play it again. You know, where Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne and Sekiro all have that one point where it's like, okay, you ramped up the difficulty way too much. Now the game's no longer fun. Now it's just sweat-inducing every time I load this fucking game up, and I don't want that. Like,
Sekiro, I beat Elden Ring. I can't remember any specific boss I just had to throw myself at a million times that stood out in and above the other bosses in that game. However, speaking about Souls-like, and this is going to be kind of weird, and this might be a spoiler, but I mean the game's been out long enough. I think it's okay. Jedi Survivor. Have you beaten that?
I haven't even played that one.
Okay,
I played the first one.
I
haven't played the second one. I'm waiting until they either fix the PC port or I buy a PS5.
So, you know, a mutual friend of ours is playing it, or was playing it, and they dropped it because they said it was just way too hard. And that was just surprising, mind-blowing to me, because I was like, I didn't think that was hard at all. And this is someone who plays games I am not skilled enough to play, different kinds, obviously.
Right.
But there's a fight in Jedi Survivor against, without any spoilers, a boss, and it requires near perfection as far as timing your attacks, timing counters, timing blocks, timing dodges. And if you mess up, you get like maybe one or two mistakes. It's a slog because you do so little damage. It is the most Souls-like encounter in that game, and it took me more tries than I care to admit to get past it, but I beat it, and both my wife and I, because Katie was sitting next to me, and both my wife and I jumped up and were like, yes. It's
Order games take place, because I played the Fallen Order, and I'm surprised you said it. That one fight is the only one that's like Souls-like, because the Fallen Order, the entire game gave me Souls-like vibe.
So the entire game is Souls-like insofar as every encounter is deliberate. Every time you make an attack, it is full send, and you're dedicated to it. And enemies can hurt you with every swing. But this fight was just edge of your seat, finger grooves into the PlayStation 5 controller, just laser focused, cannot make any mistakes. And if you did, you just got destroyed. But it was a real accomplishment. I can't remember if Fallen Order and Survivor have difficulty settings.
They do. And at least Fallen Order does. Fallen Order specifically has sliders for, there's the main difficulty, or there's the option for its Apprentice, Jedi, and Master, I think it's called, and maybe a fourth one. And then below that, it adjusts, it shows sliders what is being adjusted for each difficulty. You
mentioned earlier that difficulty settings should be seeing more of accessibility options than just easy, normal, hard. I think that's where the crux of your argument lies, actually.
I guess the best way to framework that would be, you have colorblind options, and then you have, and a lot of games nowadays are having the ability to swap between tapping to do an action versus holding, and that's for people with, mobility issues who can't rapidly tap to do something. They allow them to hold the button down, and it's pretty much that, but expanding upon that, like, we have a family member who has muscle issue with one of her arms, and that prevents her from doing certain things. Having more options to allow them to play these type of games, I don't have a problem with that. I don't see how people have a problem with that. That's the part I don't understand, is the people who have issues with this, because more people playing your game and being introduced to your world, to your IPs, your development company, like, is that really a bad thing? Like, it's not. I'm not saying put Mickey Mouse on the cover and make it appeal to everyone. I'm just saying open up a little bit. Stop being such an art snob and play games that fit their lifestyle.
Let people enjoy the things you enjoy.
Yeah. And, why wouldn't you want to share this with people? Like, if From Software titles, the only thing you have to go based on is you could, dick measure with other people, be like, well, I killed so and so and one time kind of thing. Like, sure, you could find those people and all that, but at the same time, I want to talk about the game, like say Elden Ring. I want to talk about, hey, did you see that one really cool thing, and then did you see that other neat thing after that or whatever? And I would rather it be like the other person's like, yeah, I had to turn the sliders down to get past that one part, but it was cool what I saw over there. Not, well, I guess I never get to see it. I have no clue what you're talking about because I couldn't get past, X, Y, Z. Like,
there's some pretty valid points. Some pretty nice arguments. All right, well, difficulty sliders in video games as accessibility options and allowing everyone to enjoy as much of the game as the development company put in. What do you think about it? I tried to play devil's advocate on a lot of this stuff, but honestly, he had some good points, I believe. Let us know down below your arguments. What gives you the keys to be the gatekeeper? What did you get out of it? What are some arguments we might have missed on the other side? Please educate us and let us know, because we do like these things. We want to start conversations, and that's why these types of episodes exist. We'll catch you later. Thanks.